It seems kind of crazy to have the national runner-up outside of the top 15, but that's exactly what we have with the Washington Huskies, who come in at number 19 and are way too early top 25. You know, this is a team, guys, that had a remarkable 2-year run under Kalen DeBoer. Last year going undefeated all the way up until that national championship game where they fell to Michigan. But DeBoer now off to Alabama. Practically the entire team, Michael Penix, that offense, handful of key starters on defense, off to either new schools or the NFL. Entire team gone, leaving Jedd Fisch, the new coach in Seattle, maybe with a bit of a rebuilding project as the Huskies transition from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad you could join us today as we break down the Huskies' schedule for 2024. Not predicting the games today, that will come later, but kind of previewing what Washington will be up against and if they can maybe find themselves back in the playoff, a new expanded playoff in 2024. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below, including our website, thegridironexpert.com. Tons of exclusive content over there, guys, to help you get through this offseason. Do not miss out on that and become a member of our GE Nation, guys, because here at the Gridiron Expert, the college football season never dies. We are producing content year-round to help you get through the offseason and obviously to help bring you some of the best analysis, predictions, and news during the season. So let's jump into Washington here. A team, again, that went 14-1, loses practically everybody, including their head coach, Jedd Fisch, made a surprising move from Arizona to Washington to take on this project with a Washington team that, again, had a lot of unknowns right now. They just lost so much talent. That's why we had them so low in our rankings, and arguably you could make a case for them to be lower, maybe outside of the top 20. But you take a look at their schedule. This is the Huskies' first year in the Big Ten. It's pretty difficult, if we're being honest here. No one's expecting Washington to go undefeated like they did last year. That would be absurd. You can't expect Washington to have the same expectations that they had in 2023 in 2024. It's just not going to happen. Not with a new coach, not with new schemes, not with new players, and not with this schedule. I will say there are a couple of things I want to point out before we dive deep into it. The first thing that really goes in Washington's favor is the fact the Huskies do not leave Seattle until week 5. You know, their first 4 games are at home, and that is massive. And if you look a little bit deeper, 5 of their first 7 games are at home. So it's really beneficial for Washington here. And you can make an argument that they start 5-0. You know, I don't think they're going to have any issues with Weber State, Eastern Michigan. Washington State in the Apple Cup, kind of interesting to see that game being played in week 3 and not in the season finale, but Washington State, you know, they didn't really find a home. They're going to be kind of an honorary Mountain West member this year. They did not join the Big Ten or anybody else like that. So Washington State going to have to be played in week 3, but they were able to keep that rivalry. We're looking at you, Oklahoma State. It can be done. But Washington State and Washington in week 3. It's going to be a fun one. The Apple Cup, the Huskies won 24-21 last year. Northwestern was a great story last season. They will be competitive again, but it's a long road trip for the Wildcats. I expect Washington would be favored in that game. And then the Huskies have to go all the way across the country, because that makes sense, to go play Rutgers at the end of September. A Rutgers team that won 7 games last year and will not be a pushover, especially if Washington isn't really up to par and maybe is struggling early in the season with all the key new pieces. Rutgers is a game they cannot afford to overlook. But I would expect Washington to be favored in their first 5 games. If they're able to start 5-0, that's going to set a pretty big matchup on October 5th. In Seattle, a national championship rematch against Michigan. That's going to be a fun game. Both teams with new coaches, new players, new schemes. I mean, these two teams are going to look nothing like they did in the national championship just a few months ago. But that's still going to be a really fun storyline. Washington, of course, lost to the Wolverines 34-13 in Houston back in January, but they'll have an opportunity to get the revenge. If they somehow take down Michigan and start 6-0, who cares that Kalen DeBoer is gone? Who cares that everything looks different? I mean, if Washington finds themselves at 6-0, which with a win over Michigan could very well happen, we are talking about the Huskies maybe making it to that 12-team playoff, maybe actually being a legitimate contender in their first year in the Big Ten. So that Michigan game is huge. It does not begin the key stretch, that's coming up, but that is a massive, massive game that could swing the direction of the season, especially if they get off to such a strong start. Go on the road to Iowa, Kinnick Stadium, not going to be an easy place to play. Can Iowa finally figure out their offense? The defense we expect to remain strong. Could be an intriguing game there. Then they go into their bye week. Indiana, I'm not too concerned about. They're going to have It's kind of the same boat as Washington, as Michigan. New coach, new schemes, new players. Indiana certainly in a bit of a rebuilding project after finally letting go of Tom Allen. The key stretch for Washington, though, is the month of November. That's what's going to ultimately define their season. If they get off to a strong start before the month of November, they have a first solid 2 months of the year, and they are maybe undefeated or even just a one-loss team entering November. You're talking Big Ten title. You're talking college football playoff. You're saying we didn't miss a beat despite the loss of DeVore and so many key players. But the problem is that month of November is absolutely brutal. One thing I think is funny is out of the 4 games they play in the month of November, 3 of them are against their old Pac-12 members, right? We saw so many teams. We saw Oregon and Washington and UCLA and USC all come over from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, and Washington's going to play every single one of them. They start with USC, then they play UCLA on the 16th, and they have to go on the road to Oregon, luckily getting a bye week before facing the Ducks, who are going to be elite in 2024. 2 of those games, though, do come at home. That's massive for Washington. USC, they beat the Trojans 52-42 last year. We don't know what to expect out of the Trojans, right? They look solid in their bowl game without Caleb Williams and a handful of starters, but will that translate to regular season success? That was one game against a Louisville team that's slumping. How does Lincoln Riley rally his troops, and can they fix their defense? They go on the road to Penn State. Arguably the 2 toughest games in the month of November are Penn State and Oregon. The bad thing for Washington is, though, if they're a one-loss team coming in November or an undefeated team coming in November, and they lose both of those road games, that probably ruins any hopes they had of making the playoff, of making the Big Ten championship, things like that. So, that's why those 2 games are so massive. That's why those 4 games are going to be tough. USC is not going to be a slouch. UCLA is not going to be a slouch. They're both familiar with each other in the Pac-12. But going on the road to Penn State, going on the road to Oregon, very, very difficult games for the Huskies to manage. Penn State going to have a revamped offense and a revamped defense. 2 new coordinators there. Should be better. Still a team that only lost 2 regular season games last year and made a New Year's Six bowl game. And then Oregon, while Washington did win both meetings last year in the regular season and in the Pac-12 championship, Oregon is in a much better spot than the Huskies right now. Talent-wise, coaching-wise, across the board, Oregon is in a much better spot than Washington. And the Ducks certainly going to be out for revenge and getting to host that game in Eugene. Not really the best situation if you're Washington. Still could be a massive game, though, by season's end if the Huskies do pan out and are a undefeated, one-loss team, whatever it may be in the season finale. It could be a very similar meeting as what we saw last season. But that month of November, guys, is going to define it. You look at Washington's first bit of the schedule, those first 7, 8 games. I really could see them navigating an undefeated, maybe one-loss team by the time they get to November. How they handle that final month of the year, though, is going to be massive. Happy Valley, very, very difficult. Oregon on the road with that talent, very, very difficult. Cannot sleep on USC or UCLA, although I could see Washington being favored in both of those games. So this is a team that has a lot of unknowns. And they have a handful of tough games. Michigan, not easy. Rutgers, I'm going to say, is not going to be easy. At Penn State, at Oregon, very difficult games in their first year in the Big Ten. Can Jedd Fisch navigate it? Can he surprise everybody by getting Washington back to the 12-team playoff now? Can he show that, hey, yeah, we lost a lot, but we're still a Big Ten title contender in our first year in the conference? It all remains to be seen. We're going to kind of get a really good idea of what Washington football is like probably after the Apple Cup. That's their first true test on September 14th. How they look against the Cougars will give us an idea of what to expect come conference play. But this is going to be a fun year. A monumental year for college football, a monumental year for Washington football. How do they follow up a season where they were the national runner-up? Right now, I'm going to say it's going to be a relatively successful season, but maybe not quite to the extent of what we saw last year. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Leave your thoughts about Washington football down in the comments below. We'll have their prediction coming out here in just a few months. It'll be here before you know it. Do not miss out on that. But until then, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below, including our website, thegridironexpert.com. Do not miss out on the exclusive content we have over there for you guys to help you get through this offseason. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.